Let's talk about one of the biggest questions I get from indie authors. Should I publish with KDP or IngramSpark? These are the two main options for publishing print books right now. And while they're both solid tools, they can be useful for different things. KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, is Amazon's platform. If you're publishing a book and you want it on Amazon, KDP is probably your best option. It's free to use, the setup is easy, the print quality is generally solid, and because it's Amazon, your book becomes available pretty quickly, with relatively high royalties and decent control over pricing and updates. KDP also handles Kindle ebook publishing, and if you opt in to KDP Select, you can also use Kindle Unlimited, but only if your ebook is exclusive to Amazon. You can still have your print book everywhere if you're in Kindle Unlimited. KU only makes your ebook exclusive, and that part is optional, but KDP has limits. If you want your physical book to show up in places like Barnes & Noble or Walmart, KDP alone won't get you there. They do offer something called expanded distribution, but it's unpredictable, has lower royalties, and most bookstores won't touch it because it comes from Amazon. And that's where IngramSpark comes in. IngramSpark is a print-on-demand platform that feeds into the massive Ingram distribution network. That means when you use IngramSpark, your book becomes available to libraries, indie bookstores, and big retailers outside of Amazon. That's how I get my books listed on non-Amazon websites across the web. But IngramSpark isn't perfect. They used to charge pretty steep setup fees whenever you would upload a book, but they got rid of that a little while back. In its place, they instead have some distribution fees and other things that KDP just doesn't have. IngramSpark technically lets you set your royalty rate for each book, but they have a lower maximum royalty that you can pay yourself than KDP has. And those additional fees also cut into your pay as well. So when you take it on the whole, the royalties from IngramSpark tend to be lower than the royalties from KDP. The interface at IngramSpark is clunkier too, and book approvals take longer in general at IngramSpark than at KDP. Also, just a heads up, and I know I've talked about this a lot before, but if you're hoping to use IngramSpark to get your indie books into physical traditional bookstores, I don't recommend making that a core part of your author business. These stores usually want you to allow them to return books at your expense and give them steep discounts, like 55% of the cover price. That will eat your profit and often will cost you money if you have to pay for books that get returned to you damaged. So I don't allow returns on my books through IngramSpark, and I keep my royalty percentages reasonable for me. I'm not trying to get stocked in physical traditional bookstores, I just want my books to appear on those other bookstores' websites. Now let's talk about cost and royalties. KDP is free to use, and it'll generally pay you 60% of the list price for your paperbacks, minus the printing cost and with a few exceptions. IngramSpark generally pays 40 to 45% of the list price after the retailer discounts but before your printing costs are taken out, depending on how you set up your terms there. Now for ebooks, I use KDP for Amazon and Draft2Digital for everywhere else. That combo covers everything. Amazon, Apple Books, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, libraries, without the need to go exclusive because I'm not in Kindle Unlimited. So which should you use for your print books? I recommend using KDP for Amazon. That part feels non-negotiable to me. You'll get better visibility, higher royalties, and full control. Use IngramSpark for wide print distribution, especially if you want to be listed on the websites of places like Barnes & Noble. Just don't expect those stores to stock your books physically in their traditional physical stores, unless you're bending over backwards for them or already have a huge name presence and are essentially a celebrity. So in my mind, the two platforms don't really compete, they complement each other. So I say it's not an either-or thing. Use both, but strategically.